Hello. So today we're going to talk about the different NF types. Myself included, I'm an ENFP, and there are four different types for each of the different type families. There's NF, ENFP, INFP, INFJ, ENFJ, and I'm going to go into a little bit for each sign. Overall, we are talking about the similarities that bond us all together, but something that's really interesting is how we're different as well. Of course, those who aren't aware, I do also do videos for each one of the different MBTI types, and so those are also out there. But I really want to focus on the NF types in comparison to each other and also in comparison to all the different types out there. So the different families are NF, NT, introverted thinking, or intuitive thinkers, ST, sensor thinkers, and SF. And of course, as always, I don't wish to encourage, and I'm sure as an NF type you understand this sentiment and will agree, I don't wish to encourage any kind of hierarchical thinking or any kind of divisive thinking when we're talking about these different families, because ultimately these are just subgroups of the overall group of humanity. And it's good to utilize these kind of distinctions to understand what makes this group of individuals different from that group, and etc. But it's also wise during that process to keep in mind that everybody has all the different cognitive functions available as per us being able to learn from, to emulate, to be able to manifest within ourselves. And ultimately, we all have the four different cognitive functions. The four different cognitive functions as per, what am I trying to say? We have perceiving, we have sensing, we have thinking, we have feeling faculties. Even if we are a type that has a little bit of difficulty with any of those functions, and again, it doesn't matter what family, this applies for everybody. We all have the ability to grow and to manifest all of these different modes of being and modes of perceiving. And of course, as per being able to learn from all the different functions, it comes down to, just like with tropical astrology, which I have studied for so many years and do professional readings with, it comes down to awareness and practice in manifesting the best with that awareness, and to overcome the challenges as well, facing the dark as well as the light. So some of the different characteristics of NF. Well, first things first, a couple of statistics. So the NF types, there are some different percentages out there, but roughly I calculated it. The NF types are about 16% of the human population, so it is one of the minority families, whereas ST and SFs are much more prevalent in society, much more, there's a lot more of those individuals than the NFs, or the even rarer type family, NTs. This, as with everything that is, there are pros and cons to this. One of the benefits of the NF family being not quite so large, and I think this is just a human. I don't think this is I mean, I guess that's a pretty interesting idea of nature versus nurture. But from my understanding, just like with tropical astrology, as per the energies that we're born with, what we do with them is our choice. But ultimately, we're born with those energies. I feel that, from my understanding and my research with MBTI as well, there are just certain characteristics that we're born with that make us, especially actually studying tropical astrology, is helpful in understanding which energies correspond with which types. And so from birth, I feel, and from my research, I've deduced that we are really our type from birth. And that's a whole other conversation of being able to go from the primary function to the auxiliary function as we grow up, and then tertiary, and then hopefully handling our inferior functions. We all have those four functions for those who don't know. What comes naturally to us, what we kind of grow into in teen and early adult life, and then hopefully what one mature, I guess it's not even a given that we get to that part, but hopefully we also mature to that tertiary function again, and this is all just awareness and practice. By the age of 30 or so, and then we handle that inferior function. Not that there's a strict timeline, but that seems to be the general flow of how we are physiologically and psychologically, as per how we develop. And so, anyways, NFs are about 16% of the population. One of the benefits of this is we are not the most, and I guess this is one of our challenges, the NF types, we are not the most practical. We are as I've said in previous videos, every type, every astrological energy also, even those that are said to be challenging, has a particular sort of genius, has a particular sort of beauty, a gift to offer the world. And every type, energy, etc., has its own challenges. And so the beauty of being an NF is we are people geniuses. Now, does this mean we know everything about people? No, but out of all of the different types, I think really only SF comes to mind, but even then, they specialize more in not so much the psychology and the psyche of the individual and of other people and knowing things theoretically, but more of the practical. Like, okay, how can I make people have a good time with ESFP, for example, or ISFJ? How can I make sure that all the little needs of everybody's taken care of? That's why nurses, especially, and those in the medical profession that are helping with the day-to-day routine physical therapy types, that's very often that they're ISFJ, and that's beautiful. Without ISFJ, especially in our difficult times and when we're injured, we would have a really hard time of being able to get back to where we were and to function. Again, we all have our own role in society. But my point about NFs is, yes, we are the people geniuses when it comes to understanding the psyche. Astrology too, that I study, I find is an NF practice. And it's funny because when I first was getting into it, I was thinking, oh wow, I've got to tell everyone about how to read natal charts, and I'm happy to do so, don't get me wrong. And I'm very happy to continue with my channel, both in MBTI topics and also astrology, because I love talking about, well, first I love learning about these things, and then I love to formulate my own perspective from my own observations and reflections and ideals, and trying to understand what's reality and how to make it even better through at least my humble suggestions, my humble offerings. And then I love to see the feedback and then learn even more and understand where I was right on the money without even realizing it, or at least not to that extent. And also what I didn't understand, what I didn't fully take into account, or what perspectives I never could have imagined. That is heaven to me in so many different ways. And I have other heavens too. But as per music and expressing myself, and then one day putting that out in concert form and whatnot, and being able to unite people that way and to enjoy. But that is a key part for all of us. It doesn't matter what NF type we are exactly. We love people, but we love ideas too. And usually those two different loves go hand in hand. But it can be very difficult for us NF types to meet somebody who disparages our ideas without any kind of openness. We can handle criticism, maybe not as readily and ably as an ST type, for example, who really thrives on okay, what am I doing wrong? How do I get it better? And that's one of their gifts. It's not so much criticism, though, that when we're mature as NF types, it's closed-mindedness. That's what really gets us. That's what frustrates us, motivates us, inspires us in some ways. And in fact, that is something that we offer to the world, is we're able to bring a higher sense of purpose and perspective to situations when human rights are being violated, when people just don't know enough about themselves or other individuals or demographics. And at our best, we're very humble. We don't get self-righteous. That is one of the challenges with NF types, is we can sometimes force our ideas onto other individuals consciously, which is definitely no bueno, or subconsciously. It's really interesting to note, and very sobering to note, that Adolf Hitler was an INFJ. And so these ideas and ideals, because we have a love for ideals, people, and ideas. We have to make sure we stay practical. And so, as I talked about in my other video of how intuitives and sensors can learn from each other and why we should learn from each other, it's really essential that we learn how to be more practical. And an ST friend, even though they can sometimes be frustrating for us and vice versa, they can be so helpful at being able to zero in on taking care of business, taking care of the details, being sure to also, when it comes to our ideals and our ideas, to correct any biases that we have, to get a little bit more grounded and practical. Now, we never want to lose that intuitive gut feeling spark where where we have this urge to make the world a better place. We never want to lose that. But we also need to make sure that we are operating in this world, day to day life, accurately. And how do I put this? Um, Making sure all our bases are covered, trying to be as balanced as possible, because ultimately we're all supposed to learn from the different energies, the different types. If we want to be at our best, and if we don't want to, that's fine. We have that right with free will. But for all of us to get the most out of life, the STs need to be a little bit more open to NF visualization and vision and understanding to see how the small components work in the big picture, and vice versa. Us NFs need to learn from the STs how to zero in on the details. Okay, that's a wonderful idea. How are we going to make it happen? Because ultimately, if we don't make it happen, it's just an idea. And again, you need to listen to your inner, whoever you're interacting with, you need to listen to your inner sense of right and wrong. Yes, it can be very impractical sometimes. Yes, it can slow things up and delay and even derail projects that you might be working on. You might need to leave a job suddenly. You might find that even a friendship isn't functioning because you find out that person isn't who you thought they were, and you don't really respect their sense of right and wrong. It's just not compatible with yours. It can get us into some really, our conscience is wonderful. And again, we do want to make sure that we stay grounded and practical and centered, and that we aren't willing to compromise our innermost ideals, but we are willing to not get too caught up in our ideals. That we recognize that there is a simple beauty in reality, and there is a simple, sometimes we do have to, again, the word compromise for us can be so loaded when it comes to our sense of what's right and wrong. And I don't mean to say, well, at first I don't mean to imply that STs or any other type family are prone to making uh, uh, moral errors. It's just that us NF types often can spot how injustices do occur for any type family, other NF types as well. And overall, we can see how things could be better. I think that's really the point I'm zeroing in here. Isn't so much the moral ideal; it's the idea part. Is sometimes we just need to live and let go. Live and just let it all come together, and and don't get too caught up in trying to make your ideal a reality, while still never letting go of that. It's hard, but as NF types, we're used to paradoxes because, again, we love people, but we like to spend a lot of time on our own. It doesn't matter even if you're one of the extroverted NF types like myself or an ENFJ. We need to spend time on our own to be able to get back in touch with either our introverted feeling or introverted intuition. For us, ENFPs and INFPs, it is our introverted feeling, and for ENFJs and INFJs, it's that introverted intuition. In either way, we need to be able to be on our own for a good amount of time to be able to make sense of our ideals, our ideas, our visions. What are we trying to accomplish? Our observations and reflections and taking in the world. One of my favorite things to do is to just load up YouTube video after YouTube video of all sorts of different things, to especially with music, although with MBTI as well. I don't really watch a lot of astrology videos. I find my practice gives me a lot of really useful info in that way. And also, I study the transits, and I've just studied so much other perspectives before I kind of formulate it within myself in that sense. But even then, I still need to be on my own to be able to make sense of all of these things. Us NF types have to deal with that paradox that we love people, but we also love to be alone, and we need to be thinking about people, but not necessarily around people. That can really confuse the SF types, where they can feel like that we like them and they like us, and it's a natural togetherness there, but we're not the most reliable as per their plans. They want to get together a lot, and that's great. Especially ESFJs, ESFPs, they love to host parties and host get-togethers and whatnot. And ISFPs and ISFJs, even though they don't necessarily like to be the one putting groups of people together, they like to attend if they feel like there are other, like, if loved ones are there, there's a reasonable expectation of having a good time. And the NF types, we love to go to those things, and we love to go to NT and ST events too. It's just SF types, we have that commonality of having feeling guide us strongly, whether it's extroverted or introverted. But we have that difference in perception of intuitive and sensing. And so basically us NF types, we have to face the fact that we don't need as much external stimulation as the other types. In fact, the only other type that really matches us as per our gift for and need for abstraction in our ability to make sense of our reality and to continue to grow and make our lives even better according to our own estimation, which is good. We all, doesn't matter what type, should be seeking that end of making our life better by our own estimation, by our own means. The NT types also being that they have the perceptive faculty of intuition first, the abstract first. We are very similar in that regard to them, and we'll get into that cross-reference later, compare and contrast. But yeah, with SFs, we can frustrate them a little bit, and vice versa. We love that they love so freely and they're so lovely, but we really need to get back to our ideas. Oh, I'd love to go, but I can't. I have, as is frequently the case for us NF types, I have schoolwork I need to do, or I have more research I need to do just for the hell of it. I just need to, of course we won't put it that way because we don't want to hurt their feelings. We'll say, and it's not just flippant, like, oh, just for the hell of it. It's like, no, like, I have research to do. For us NF types, when we're studying what we love to study, just like the NTs, we don't need to be around people. And in fact, that's one of the things that is so strange about being an NF type, is we love people, we need to be around them. They're a crucial part. I mean, really, for every single type, there is that natural social element of being human. But NF, we really do love being around people. It's just, we deal better in abstractions. Not to understand intuition versus sensing. And of course, it's slightly different for extroverted or introverted, as per what I'm about to demonstrate. But still, it's still the same. The intuitive types, we look more with our brain than our eyes, than our senses in that sense. We're more focused on what's going on in our headspace than maybe what our body is feeling. Oh, I guess I am hungry. I've been focusing on this idea for the last hour. I haven't even thought about that. Oh, I guess it is a little cold in here. I guess I should have put on socks 3 hours ago. Oh, wow, yeah, that is beautiful. I was so focused on the idea of flowers, I didn't really notice the beauty in front of me. And that's why those types can be really helpful for us, because they're easy to let us off the hook, because they know we care. They know that they do have a really important role in our lives, and that's really healing for SF types, to feel like they belong. I mean, that's actually for NF as well. There's a special love, because again, this applies to all of us, of course, but for NF and SF types, there's a special kind of love that we give and receive when we feel like we can routinely see individuals and call them our friends and call them our kind of broader extension of family in a sense that we can reliably give and receive love from them and trust them. That's something that's really beautiful. So we get that with SF. It's just again we tend to be more in our heads than in the environs around us, and that's why SF types love us, because we can be extremely helpful. Extremely helpful. Doesn't matter if it's INFJ, ENFJ, INFP, ENFP, in being able to provide advice and some solace and help them understand. Yeah, that really sucks. This breakup you're going through. It's usually through a challenging time. Although our advice can be used to make life even better for any type that's willing to listen, but especially SF, because we can naturally empathize. Well, we naturally empathize regardless of NF types, but we can communicate that empathy and feel it appreciated and returned as well, whereas an ST type might feel a little uncomfortable. Again, I don't wish to ever generalize, but we are talking about some character. I mean, it is what it is. The tendency, I would say, from my perspective, naturally for an ST or even sometimes an NT type, even though they can understand the sentiment maybe a little bit better than maybe the average ST, as per the NF relating and wanting to get to know them and understand where they're coming from, they're still kind of, what are you doing type sentiment with the thinking types, whereas a SF understands intuitively, intuitively, naturally, inherently, because they have that same urge of, who are you? Tell me about yourself. I want to get to know you. I want to feel like there's some reciprocity between us of goodwill and feeling. And it's nice with the feeler types, and there certainly are challenges, and we'll talk about that in future videos. The feeler types are cognizant of the human need of connection socially, and are very able and willing to facilitate that social connection and go out of their way to let others know that they care about them or are thinking about them or are interested in getting to know them, etc. So that's a really nice bond between SF and NF. Before we get to NT, I want to focus on ST and on NF a little bit better, because I feel like there's some points I've been missing. I think probably the biggest thing is, if we're dealing with two mature individuals, and of course this goes true for the SF-NF and the NT-NF relationships as well, but for the opposite family type, so NF-ST or SF and NT, and we'll talk about those in future videos, you have to, just like in astrology, when you have two energies that have so much, there's so much to gain from each other, but they have to be able to put aside biases and preferences and just have an open mind and not judge each other. And of course, some NFs might say, yeah, the STs are so judgmental. Yeah, well, the NFs can be so fucking judgmental too. We can get on our moral high horse and act all self-righteous and act like we know everything about other individuals and make assumptions, and then we sit couched in those assumptions and we rob ourselves of some beautiful, genuine interactions and ability to understand other perspectives that don't come quite naturally to us, which very often the ST offers. And so on both ends, it's really important to open up. Probably one of the biggest things in my personal life, I've had some really great ST friends that have helped me to get in shape, to make sure I'm eating right, to make sure that I'm exercising enough and not too much, because us NFs, we love our ideals so much, and the ideal of fitness. Well, you don't necessarily want to beat your body by working out for 4 hours a day and then not working out for the next week. Like, there's better ways of doing it, and there's better ways of doing everything, of relating to individuals, of everything in life. And ST helps NF to ground and to get accurate. And something that's really fucking awesome about ST types, especially as an NF, is they are willing to tell you their perspective and the truth without caring about hurting your feelings. I know how that sounds, but it's amazing. It really is, because SF types, lovely, so lovely. The challenge, they're not necessarily going to give you the full truth. They're going to say something because they don't want to lose that connection. And there's also a truly benevolent intention. Oh, I don't want to hurt their feelings. Yeah, but you also don't want to lose that friendship. And it's okay. Us NF types are the exact same way. It's just sometimes our ideas and our ideals just go, fuck it, I have to tell them this. ST types naturally just go, this is what it is. This is what I see. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, but this is what I see it. And quite frankly, I think I'm right, or I know I'm right, because all of this evidence suggests it, and it's right there, right in front of you. What do you have to argue about? You know, that's really, really helpful sometimes when we're caught up in our, quite frankly, our NF bullshit. And we all have our bullshit. You know, there's no need to get sensitive about it. When we get, I just think about from personal experience some of the silly things I've learned. I've learned firsthand of my NF bullshit, of justifying things because of my ideals, my ideas. Oh, no, this is a good friend because of this particular energy with my particular energy. It's like, yeah, again, it's kind of like I have like an inner ISTJ. I was raised by an ISTJ stepmom and stepdad, so I kind of have this inner ISTJ within me that is developed slowly but surely, that introverted sensing inferior function that has greatly helped that to kind of curb some of the more excessive intuition feeling type stuff. For example, with that example of oh, but this energy and this friend, oh, it could be so great. Yeah, but it's not great because they're not putting forth the effort. You know, the ST type, ST just what is it though? Not what could it be, what should it be, what will it be? No. What is it right now? Okay, cool. Because you need both of those perspectives. You know, and it's interesting because the ST types have intuition and feeling as their tertiary and their inferior functions, just as us NF types have those as our primary and auxiliary. And of course, we have what comes naturally to the ST types, the sensing and the thinking. We have that in our tertiary and our inferior functions, you know, one way or another, because it's different for all of us. INFP and ENFP, ENFP and INFJ, for example, having sensing as our inferior, and then INFP and ENFJ having thinking as the inferior. Regardless, it's good to have a friend and or see a professional to just tell you what it is. You know, as long as it's an honest ST mechanic who's just trying to help you make sure your shit works, it's really nice to know what's wrong with your car. And just to tell you, listen, this battery is going to go out in a month, and not being too worried of, oh, how are they going to take the news, or they don't focus on that stuff too much. And again, they have their own challenges that we'll get into that video in the future. But the gift of that is they're not super concerned about making sure that you like them, and they're not super concerned about making sure that your feelings don't get hurt. What's more important, and of course, nobody wants to go around hurting other people's feelings, but what's more important in certain scenarios is just the truth. You know, and really, you know, the ST type would say, well, in all scenarios, I mean, yes, but sometimes, you know, you don't really want to tell, you know, maybe it's a timing issue of telling your partner, you know, you are putting on a little bit of weight there. You know, it's sometimes you don't want to just go direct to the ST. And so for us NFs, we need to think about that and when we're taking in the ST wisdom and trying to apply it in our lives and to develop our tertiary and inferior functions, we still don't want to become blunt about it. We don't want to form an ideal too strong, too excessive of just say it as it is, because that's where the feeler wisdom is needed to make sure that hey, why don't we go to the gym? You know, that would be fun. You know, instead of just going, listen, you're overweight. You know, now again, we'll go back to this point one more time. Sometimes you need that bluntness, that ST bluntness. And especially for us NFs, when we marry that with our natural empathy and care for individuals and ability to talk eloquently and to illuminate and enlighten others, you know, really to get to the best of all of what I just mentioned, all that gift, that potential, we need to get blunt. We need to get to the point, but we need to still stay true to our essence. We need to make sure that we aren't hurting people's feelings except as a last resort, because as NF types, we do care about other people's feelings. And, you know, we do need to learn from that lesson, though. When is it time to just say something instead of trying to set it up and to, oh, how are they going to act? How are they going to react? is this gonna kill our friendship or this or that or whatever. Again, this is all general guidelines. I'm not trying to say, okay, you need to go out and say this, whatever. Of course, I'm never trying to say that. I'm more just, again, I'm an ENFP. I'm trying to provide the general guidelines of some things to think about for you on your journey, to make sure you don't go a little bit too far this way or too far that way, to have that balance. So again, there's a time for bluntness. There's a time for softening things up. And that's something that's actually really cool about the ST-NF interactions, is even though both of us can kind of roll our eyes or be a little taken aback or concerned about how the other communicates, we are so able to help each other grow. And we help the ST types to broaden their perspectives and broaden their horizons, and think about things they never thought to even think about before. And for us, this is very commonplace, because we are intuitives. We're naturally thinking. I don't mean thinking in the term of T or F. I mean, we are gathering information. I guess it does depend, of course, if you're, an NFP is gathering information from all sorts of different directions all the time, whereas a NFJ is focusing more on one direction, kind of gathering information to spearhead or make an arrow in that particular direction. So let's get on to the NT-NF types. This is a one of my best friends in the world, who I text more than anybody else in this world, and I have for years, is an ENTP. And I'm sure at some point, actually we've already talked about it, so I know at some point, intuition, not a sensing, direct, for sure, date, but still, is going to happen. We're going to do an interview series. I actually want to start doing an interview series of me interviewing different individuals in my life with their types, and just kind of getting to know them. Well, I already know them, but to provide some interesting MBTI related observations and reflections, and kind of have fun with them too, and kind of see what they think about their types. And some of those individuals really don't give a damn about MBTI, so that'll be really interesting too. My ESFP friend is just like, yeah, whatever. That's interesting, but I'm gonna go do shit instead. But anyways, yes, my ENTP friend. I've had lovely, fantastic INTJ friends. Yeah, INTP as well. And as far as I can, it's kind of hard to judge. I don't know if I've ever had an ENTJ friend, but regardless, one of my favorite intellectuals to learn from. And I know that he's gotten into some hot water over some very, from my understanding, I haven't looked into it too far, but from my understanding, some big misunderstandings about what his motives are. But Jordan Peterson, he's a genius intellectual, and when you focus on what he has to say about the different proclivities and physiologies of being male and female, and certain biological tendencies, and being able to understand. He talks on several different topics, but being able to understand how to self-actualize and to become your better self by facing certain truths abstractly, that can be extremely helpful. So regardless of whether you know of or like him or not, he's, for me, a fantastic source of understanding. Actually, NT types in general, and I would say this is true for us NF types, a fantastic source of intellectualism and understanding. And of course, there are the challenges as well, where us NF types, and actually Peterson is a good example, although I feel like I've looked into that issue quite a bit, so I actually know quite a bit about it. He defends his points very saliently, especially in an interview with a woman who I think is an ENFP. And that whole situation is a good example of why NF and NT types feel natural affinity, and also what can be difficult is NT types are so damn intelligent, but sometimes us NF types can cringe when they, and I'm speaking broadly here, I'm not speaking to that specific example too much. We we can cringe at how on a couple of different levels. We can cringe at how their ideas and the purpose of where they're coming from actually. So that example is a good one. Is kind of lost or gets muddled or confused by SF and less often, but still possible ST, and also of course NF types. When we understand what an NT is really saying and other people don't, which is frequently the case because these types are so intelligent and because you have to speak their vocabulary, let alone be able to follow the conversation. For example, with INTP types, like last night, I was trying to be able to play a PC game through Steam on my Mac, and I had to do all this shit that quite frankly, I failed. I totally failed. I lagged myself through it, and lag, because I was just like, okay, I don't even know what this is. I don't know what this language is. I'm supposed to do what? Because I'm looking at forums and whatnot. I'm just like, oh, why can't I just buy? I'm just gonna buy a PC at some point and just play this game on there, because this is Age of Empires, by the way, for those who are interested too. It's one of my favorite computer game. Strategy and the building of civilizations, very NF, I think. But I was just like, I don't, what? When it came to understanding what they were trying to tell me to do to help me, and that is quite frequently the case of the NT types. So they're trying to help society. They think very long and very hard. Doesn't mean they're always right, but they have very good, for example, with that case with Peterson, he wasn't coming from a place of hate speech at all. He was trying to make sure that the government couldn't tell you have to. It wasn't trying to, where he was trying to fight against the injustice of a government trying to tell a person how to speak. And of course, and he was he was coming from a positive sentiment, but that was kind of lost on a lot of individuals, and I think it's largely over now. But that's tough for us NF types because we understand NT types so well, and we do have a certain role of being able to communicate their genius to others. For example, I believe Nikola Tesla was an INTP, but I know for sure that Elon Musk is, and that's just an individual that I top 5, as I say to my ENTP friend, top 5 public figures alive is Elon Musk for me, because I'm just constantly in awe of all that he's accomplishing and how intelligent he is and how he's making his vision a reality. And regardless of whether they have extroverted intuition or introverted intuition, we feel as NF types a natural understanding with them, a natural, even though sometimes we go, what are you talking about? When we finally grasp it, because it's pretty easy for us to, when we actually set ourselves to it. Like, again, certain things are just beyond us, like with that computer incident, I'm just like, oh, fuck. But there's a natural understanding and affinity when that bridge of connection is made, and vice versa too. Us NF types can provide some fantastic insight into the psyche for any type willing to listen. But I don't wish to generalize, but frequently the SF types, for example, they're a little bit more focused on, generally, on relationships, which is fine, completely understandable, fascinating realm of study. I have a sun-sign compatibility series I've done for years. I'm finishing up in the very near future. I also use it for relationships. Of course, I'm a feeler type, and ultimately everybody. It's also another part of human connection is romantic and platonic relationships. So we're all fascinated with that, all 4 of the different types in our own particular way. But that being said, the difference, the perceptive gap, and it goes both ways. Because I'm sure a lot of SF individuals would love me to be a little bit more practical. Actually, I know to be the case. And of course, in readings, I tailor everything to be as helpful as possible. So I find myself kind of going more into the SF mode, which is, again, I'm more than happy. It helps me to grow to be able to do that. But it still is a little bit different for me as compared to just allowing the intuition, focusing on what could be, what ideally should be, and what will be, as happens when talking with another intuitive. And it's really fascinating to talk with an NT type and to be able to offer my perspective, my understandings, and they have at least some grasp. Because again, from their perspective to ours too, it's kind of like, wait, what? Astrology? I thought that was like bullshit. Like, no, you have to, let me explain how this system functions practically from an ST standpoint. With the solar system being flat, we have what, relatively flat, all on the horizontal plane of the solar system, basically. And so all of the astronomical bodies in our solar system. I'll be doing a video on this very soon, but I've talked about this in the past too, but I need to make a video on this so people understand exactly how tropical astrology functions. Basically, all the astronomical bodies, but Pluto in our solar system is on this horizontal plane, and regardless of our rotation or our being tilted 23.5 degrees on the axis and our rotation, we still are on this horizontal plane. And what is the zodiacal wheel but looking at a pictograph of our solar system, seeing the 12 different regions of space, 30 degrees each, and understanding each of those regions of space, not the constellations, because that, again, that's warped by our perspective of the heavens, of all of the different stars from our 23.5 degree axis, and also the precession of the equinoxes every 22,000 years or so, us tilting, wobbling like a top. And so ultimately we're looking at our solar system, the regions of space in our solar system, the astronomical bodies in our solar system, at least for tropical astrology. There's a lot of different astrological things to study. But my favorite and what I find to be the most useful, tropical astrology. So for NT types to NF types as well, it's like learning a new language. So that can be one of the sources of frustrations. It's like, how is it my INTP friend, my ENTP friend, y'all are so goddamn fucking smart, but you can't understand the mechanics of how our solar system functions and how it impacts us psychologically. And of course, you need to. It's wise to have that understanding of the underpinnings of the different orbits and whatnot of our solar system. That's extremely essential. But also, NF types have a natural understanding of people's psyches. We can see behavioral tendencies. We can read between the lines and look past the surface and know what's going on within an individual. It doesn't matter if they're an ST type, an NT type, an SF type. We're able to just magically know things. And of course, it's not really magic. It's just our perspective. I mean, I guess subjectively we could say it's magic. But we're looking at, we're naturally geared to study people. We're naturally geared to study ourselves, our psyche, to ask ourselves, what do I feel? What do others feel? And again, that comes down to introverted versus extroverted feeling. But it's still a sense of whether you're going, how do others feel? How do I feel? Or how do I feel? How do others feel? It doesn't matter which of that flow happens. It doesn't matter if it's extroverted, introverted. It's still feeling. Plus intuition. Again, it doesn't matter whether you're looking at the omens and the understanding abstractly at large, like a giant spider web all around you and in front of you and around you. I said that. Or if you're looking at it from an introverted intuition point, and you're looking at kind of like an arrow through space, and then that connects to other things that feed that arrow and whatnot. We are naturally geared towards, I mean, it's not just people, there are other things. For example, I love making music, but why do I love making music? I love it because it allows me to express myself. And I love it because I can study other individuals' music, look at their astrological chart, understand what their MBTI type is, find out about their personal histories and how they influenced the culture they were living in or didn't, and vice versa, how the culture influenced them, what difficulties they went through, because everybody goes through difficulties, what challenges they overcame or didn't, and how they were able to triumph, and then relate that back to myself, and then what I'm making, and then relate back to the world. That's something that we have to understand is very peculiar to NF types, and that's why other individuals, I mean, there are certainly other things they don't necessarily like about us, but that's one of the reasons why we love everybody, and we're generally, as long as we are honest and make some measure of becoming comprehensible and staying practical, and take the time to get to know individuals who are different from us and don't cringe from saying our true perspectives even when we know other individuals may not like those perspectives or even may deride us for those perspectives. When we take the time and the effort to get to know others and let them get to know us, generally we're pretty well liked. Again, we might be seen as airy or spacey or too idealistic or fucking hippies or whatever, but generally it's like, but they're cool, they're harmless, I can trust them, they have a strong moral compass, and I could learn from them, again, if they're coming from an open-minded perspective. And it doesn't matter what type family that may be. Ultimately, every type family can be appreciated by every other type. It's just they have to get to know the language, and that's that leads us to one of the challenges, and we'll wrap up the NT-NF connection in a moment, but that's one of the challenges of being an NF type, is we understand other people so well. And again, I'm not trying to say we know everything all the time and we yada yada yada. I'm not trying to claim any kind of ever-present knowing or infallible knowing or whatnot. We are just as human and fallible, of course, and certain things we can assume about other individuals, which we later find out to not be true. But that then informs us, our kind of database of understanding and human interaction. And so the next time we're likely to get it right, or we learn from our human interactions. We learn from our interactions with beings in general. Animals play a huge part in NF people's lives, and we can speak with them and understand them without. Have you ever noticed that you can pet an animal just in the right place, as long as you're not in a flustered mood or something, and you get better with it at times, with time, and with individuals. Have you ever noticed when you pet them and they're it's funny, but there is, like, psychologically, NF types stimulate the pleasure centers of other individuals' feelings. As long as we are not too caught up in our ideas, as long as we're focused on what's going on, if we're in the right place in the right time, in the sense of we're not overextending ourselves socially, so we're not just exhausted and need to go recuperate physically and also emotionally and also mentally, and try to get some balance by focusing more on ideas and theories and concepts, and again, watching YouTube videos and whatnot. If we are fully engaged, if we're happy to be where we are, it doesn't even matter if we're particularly happy in that moment. Although, again, it can kind of make things a little bit more difficult, but still, we naturally stimulate the pleasure centers of other individuals because we care about them. And so we take the time and the effort to get to know people, to get to know that individual, to get to know that kind of demographic, to get to know that particular language, that culture, that whatever, and to find connections. Now, again, I know this is a little bit peculiar to each, that is a little bit more of the NFP mode, but the NFJ is interested in this too, fascinated with this too. They like to act a little bit more, instead of just like with a conversation of appreciating somebody and where they're coming from and getting to know them and understanding them. They like to do things, I don't wish to generalize, but one way that this can manifest is they like to maybe hold a festival for this particular culture that they've gotten to know so well and learn so much about, and wanted to include into the community and have a nice exchange of ideas and customs and whatnot. That could just be one way. But ultimately, us NF types, we're generally well liked because we genuinely well like people. And even if we don't necessarily like a person, we have love for them. And that's something that every type could really learn from us, is to have a stronger sense of ideals. And of course, again, we're looking at balance. We want to temper this with practical considerations. We want to stay true to how we feel. We don't want to we don't want to um, encourage, whether explicitly or implicitly, any kind of negative behavior, um, treatment, etc. But we're pretty, we really care about people, and so even if we know that somebody has done terrible things before, or even if they've done terrible things to us, we can still, there's this part of us, and we'll get into the challenge in a moment of this, but the beauty of it is we still have love for people. We still know, yeah, this is where you are, and it's not a very good place, but you could still move to this level. You know, you could still do this. You could, and even let alone what you could do and whatnot. As an individual, as a person, you are as much a divine spark of God, of spirit, as I am. And again, we do want to temper that with, oh, but you made some terrible choices, so I'm not going to necessarily trust you, something like that. But still, I'm not, it's not in my nature to waste time and energy with trying to attack you or thwart you in any kind of way. You know, SNF types are known as the hippie types for a reason. And again, there are certain other types that are said to kind of go in that camp as well. ISFP comes to mind, ESFP. But, you know, ENTP even. But regardless, something that everybody could learn from NF types is we don't let our personal experiences or observations, especially observations of the outside world, interfere when we're at our best. And sometimes we can stumble with this, but it's in our nature, and especially if we're working at this with time, we become really good at not letting anything or anyone mess with our sense of ideals. And there's a solace in that. I may not know what the future holds for me as an NF type, or, you know, again, that's true for all of us, but as an NF type, I don't know what the future holds for me. I hope for certain things. I hope certain other things don't happen. But ultimately, there's a certain solace that I feel in my realm of feelings, that due to all of the self-education, also the education that I've done and received, I know too much to be able to give in to petty bullshit for long anyways, you know. And there's that shadow part that I struggle with, we all do. But even at this point with practice, it's become pretty easy to recognize, okay, I'm acting like an idiot. I need to let go of this. You know, this person cut me off. I need to let go of this. It's not important in the grand scheme of things. This person might be late to go feed their children. This person might be having a bad day because they just lost their job. Or, you know, this person just maybe things are going pretty well for them, but I know that in a couple of years they won't, because whatever is causing them to do this, you know, that'll have karmic repercussions. Or maybe they just didn't even recognize I was there. That's fine. There's all sorts of other understandings, and you don't even necessarily need to know why something happens, although it's extremely helpful, especially for the intuition aspect of our consciousness. But that feeling part of just, you know, I'm good. I'm going to continue to be a beneficial force in society. That's my dog. So a beneficial source in society, regardless. This has saddened me, or this has frustrated me, or this has pained me, but I'm gonna get over it, and I'm not gonna let those feelings rule my life. Something about being a feeler type in particular, and being an intuitive feeler type. So focusing on the feeler type first. As a feeler type, it's more natural for us to be able to understand our emotions and other people's emotions. And of course, the thinker types could manifest that, just like us feeler types. In fact, we're all destined to, as long as we are seeking ultimate self-actualization and mastery and growth, we have to incorporate that which is weak for us or challenging for us, that shadow those shadow functions, what's difficult. Being a feeler type gives us a kind of wisdom of the heart. And having intuition be our prime perceptive function, whether extroverted or introverted, us NF types are able to understand the realm of feelings in ways that, say, SF types, who focus more on the sensor, on their senses, can have trouble with. And of course, they have gifts that we don't have and we can learn from. We'll get to that in a second. But being able to insulate your feelings, to guide the current of your feelings with certain ideals and certain understanding, that comes very naturally to the intuitive types. And for us NF types, we're being the only intuitive feeler group, of course, as I was saying before, I have a solace knowing that whatever happens in my life, I'm going to continue to act true to myself. I'm going to continue to seek to be as beneficial a source of information and guidance as possible. Always seeking to expand upon that and augment that and to become more helpful, more useful, more beneficial. And that good things will come from that, regardless of what exactly happens. And at our best, we're able to, I know this is a little bit more of the ENF functions, ENF kind of roles in society, but this applies for all of us because we all have extroverted and introverted qualities. Us NF types at our best are then able to help other people develop their sense of ideals and ideas and understanding about the human psyche. And sometimes we're not well understood. Sometimes, being that sensors are about 70% of the world's population, sometimes it can be frustrating as an intuitive. And especially being that there's so many, I think it's about 50-50 for feelers and thinkers. But regardless, it can be sometimes difficult to feel heard and to feel like your vision is becoming a reality. But it's good that it takes time. It's good because you know that which happens over the long term is going to be most likely to be accurate because you'll be correcting. You'll get more information, more knowledge, more understanding, more experiences to draw upon, so you can understand yourself better, you can understand other people better, and you can hone your ideals even better. I've changed my ideals a lot over the years, not in such drastic senses. I've become a definitely new person, but I've opened up my mind tremendously with time, and I continue to do so. And that's really an important place to get to, because as NF types, we need to be able to connect with everybody for us to be at our best and to feel fulfilled, and for us to be able to contribute everything we could possibly contribute to society. We need to be able to understand all of the different points of view. Now, again, this can be a little bit difficult, or different rather, for the extroverted versus the introverted NF types. But ultimately, INFJ and INFP also are very interested in connecting with other individuals. It's just that they go about it in a little bit more of an introverted sense first. So, for example, INFP wants to influence the world just like any other NF type, but they want to express their feeling first. So maybe it's through their artwork. INFJ definitely, of course, wants to influence the world too, but maybe they first want to stay focused with their plan, their goal, a movement, social movement, and then in that framework, then they'll be able to communicate with other people and in a way that they feel really fulfilled and comfortable with, etc. Regardless of extroverted or introverted faculties, it's really essential for all us NF types to be able to learn from and incorporate that knowledge from other individuals out there, especially those that are very different from us. And it's important for us to broaden our horizons and not get caught in any kind of hippie bubbles, um, so that we're around individuals who challenge our ideas, not in a negative sense. It doesn't mean we need to be around people who are abusive and who are just stuck in shadow behavior, but even when we're around such individuals, we need to not disdain them. We need to not think, oh, they're completely living terribly wrong. I mean, it's good to be discerning. It's good to say internally, wow, that person's a real fucking dick, you know? But, and sometimes we need to stand up for, of course, stand up for ourselves, stand up for other individuals. But we can't, it's wise. It's wise to recognize that we can't be at our best until we see the humanity in everybody and we are able to talk with everybody and provide our perspective and to listen to other people's perspectives. Now, again, somebody is being extremely rude or even mean, um, especially at that particular time, it's probably going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to be able to be heard. But it is something to keep in mind that we never want to get caught in us versus them. Our ideals can be pretty ironic in that way, that we can paint certain individuals as almost like subhuman. We can get very self-righteous, us NF types, and it's good to work through that. Again, even if that person is treating other people badly, it doesn't mean you have to like them, doesn't mean you have to be around them, etc. But it's good to learn from them too. Even if it's just how not to be. And that helps with our blind spot of being able to learn from people who we don't really like or respect. Because those individuals, being so different from us, can offer us a lot of insight. Wrapping up what we were talking about the SF to NF types. Something that's really nice about SF wisdom and something that we could really gain from is, whereas we as NF types tend to be able to insulate and protect our sense of feeling, um, and to guide it effectively through our ideas and our understanding, they can do so really well through the body, through exercise, through sports, through being able to go, oh, I feel this particular way, or this person has influenced me in this particular way to make me feel this way, etc. I'm gonna go pump my endorphins up, and that's a great way to do it too. That's a great way to control, making sure that you're guiding your emotions and you don't snap into anything stupid or crazy, and that you're being able to understand your feelings and work through them and to get at peace with them. That's greatly aided by working out. And ST types know this as well, but considering we're talking about the realm of how feelings impact us, SF types are really great at that. And then wrapping up what we were talking about NT, connecting, or our connections with NF, or as with NT types as NFs. Again, I don't ever wish to encourage any kind of hierarchical thinking, consciously or subconsciously. So it's first important to understand and appreciate the incredible contributions on so many different levels of SF and ST types. Um, and in the realms that where NT and NF types thrive, there are still plenty of SF and ST types that thrive just as much in their own particular way. That all being said, NT types and NF types being the minority in this world, and being that most people are pretty cool and pretty open-minded. At least they're willing to give something a shot for at least a particular amount of time. Doesn't matter SF, ST, whatever type may be, but especially sensor types. They're pretty. What I really love about sensing individuals is they're willing to listen. They may not be interested in hearing everything that you have to say, because NT and NF types, we have so much to say, especially as NF types, especially as extroverted and whatever types. But overall, sensor individuals are very grounded usually, and very practical, which again we can learn from, and it's great to have friends of those stripes. Um, but like I was saying, something that's unique to NF and NT is we we are really the ones who create the anthems that all of humanity connects with. John Lennon's Imagine is a good example. Kanye West is an ENTP. He is able to connect with the collective regardless of what personal travails he's going through, even when those travails are immense. INTJ, Bill Gates, able to play a crucial role in helping the world become more advanced technologically. Jordan Peterson, ENTJ, communicating some really fascinating, enlightening ideas and understanding of human potential. INTP, again, Elon Musk, being able to, through his ideas and putting together of teams, servicing those ideas to accomplish incredible feats and continuing to do so. To INFJ, wonderful leaders. I've heard that Nelson Mandela is an INFJ, and Gandhi as well. I think it's fair to say that Jesus was INFJ. I can't speak to Gandhi or Nelson Mandela too much because I haven't really studied their MBTI types too well, but I can definitely see that. Regardless, INFJ is, I'm sure I'm forgetting some very obvious examples, because INFJ is primed to be an incredible moral compass and leader of the people, and to be able to help individuals, and that everybody, NT types and NF types. Granted, of course, this is also true for SF and ST types, but being that the power of abstraction being so complete, and again, sensing has its power too, that is complete in its own right. But what I'm trying to say is, a person with a right idea can influence the entire world in a faster and in some ways more evolutionary way than a single sensor event or product can. Now again, in other ways, that same event, that same product, that same sensor, beauty and genius can change the world too. But again, we're talking about different, just as important, both, but different. My point is with this, with NT and NF types, even though we don't necessarily understand everything that the other is saying or even doing, I guess it's usually about more saying. NFs find a kindred spirit in the NT of their vision, their ability to project into the future and to have huge goals, usually lofty goals. Well, yeah, always lofty if it's of the higher order. And it doesn't necessarily have to be influencing every single person on the planet, but it's helping their neighborhood, it's helping their community, their realm, their field, etc., to get better in some way, to become more interesting, more intricate, more advanced. That's something that we can really connect with, because NF is NF and NT are the only ones that are interested and are willing and able to take that particular route of success. And again, no better, no worse, just different to ST and SF success. That's all essential. We all want to be at our best. We don't need to, of course, NF types understand and I'm sure agree with this. We don't need to master somebody else to be a master. In fact, that's an illusion and has to do more with ego and all sorts of strange negative emotions. We want to master ourselves first and foremost, first and foremost, first and last, and in the middle, and every step along the way. And we want to master our purpose. What are we here for? And we can find that with NT types as well. Now again, different realms, different methods, and sometimes we can be helpful and kind of, oh, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that so much because it's going to influence people in that particular way emotionally. You know, that's not the most emotionally, you know, as high IQ as the NT types have, we have the EQ. And of course, SF types have their EQ, ST has their IQ. And we can all develop all of it, of course. But our natural niche in society is that high EQ. That high abstract EQ. So yeah, trading notes with NT types can be extremely helpful and extremely affirming too, because sometimes us NF types, we need that assurance. It's this part of feeling. And I think it has to do with, of course, the introverted quality, or I mean, even from other angles, the extroverted quality as well. Whether it's intuitive or feeling, we like to share our ideas and our ideas with other people naturally, but sometimes we really need somebody to kind of fact check us and to make sure that we're espousing the right campaign. You know, I know it's kind of an ENFP thing, but we want to make sure that we're on to the right path. And we're making other people's lives better by giving them the right information and encouraging them to do certain things that, from our moral compass, feels right and makes sense for them as well. And an NT type can be extremely helpful with that. And being able to analyze our purpose, to be able to see it in their power of abstraction, their mind's eye, and to fill in the gaps where our feeling, or even our tertiary or inferior thinking, can't quite do readily. So again, every type is important. Every type has their gifts. This is it's still important to appreciate what makes us uniquely NF types. Because that can be one of our challenges, is we can be so good at understand, and maybe the INF types have a little bit easier way of doing this, but we all have our introverted and extrovert, or rather we all have our extroverted functions wherever they are on our charts. But sometimes us NF types can be so focused and adept with dealing with other individuals that we don't deal with ourselves. Too well. And so my last thought is, of course, to be able to deal with ourselves even better, we bring out the best in all of our different astrological energies. We bring out the best out of our inferior function, as well as, of course, our tertiary, our auxiliary, and primary functions. We seek to be at one with our psyches and with those of others. We seek to find that balance while still never forgetting our gifts and still continuing to strive to broaden our vision even further while continually becoming more practical to make that vision a reality. It is an endless, sometimes exhausting and exasperating, but so magical and fulfilling journey, goal, experience But that's our life. That is our ultimate purpose in so many ways. And it can feel lonely being in a minority of types or ways of being and perceiving on this planet. But it's essential to remember we can always, with the right ideas and the right intentions, connect with anyone and everyone and make good things happen. The question is, we need to clarify our intentions. What are we trying to make happen practically? And what are the steps pragmatically to make those things happen? Being guided by our moral compass and our sense of ideals, but not getting trapped in that sense of a bubble. Not getting trapped with our ideas of, no, it has to happen this way. I've imagined it this way for so long. Focus on the reality, but also focus on what the reality could be. And I think that's the best way for us to live and to accomplish what we're seeking to accomplish. Infinite love to you, my friend. Namaste.